Okay, so this is about the fifth time I've recorded this. I haven't been happy with the others, so I'm just gonna jump right in. So I have this future based drum kit, like it's got pretty much everything I need, but I need a kick and a snare. So this episode is gonna be about choosing the right samples. So I know a future bass, it's kind of like a boomy kick, but it's not subby. That's where the actual sub goes. So I found this one right here, and it's pretty good. But I don't like to load up samples just, straight in because these samples are just loose samples. They're not fixed to the mix. They're not suited towards your work. They're just suited for whoever wants to mess with them. So I'm going to go open it. So the first thing I like to do, I like to listen to it. I know for a fact that this sounds good, but I want to do some cleanup. One, I want to make it mono. I don't need a stereo kick. The sub or the bass is going to be a mono anyways, so I'm going to make it mono immediately. Step two, I'm going to open up an EQ and I'm going to get rid of anything under this fundamental. Just because if it's not strong down here, it's just going to be messy. And messy is the opposite of tight. So let's give it a little bit looser of a tail or of a fade out. There we go. And you'll notice the waveform changed. Hear that? It's steady. This, it's got a snap to it. There we go. So I'm going to normalize it with Control N, or you can go into Tools, and then you can normalize all regions or just normalize. Then I'm going to go into Tools and Amp, and I'm going to lower this 3 decibels. I like to go 3 decibels because the kick shouldn't hit louder than 3 decibels, just in general. So I'm going to lower it 3 decibels. My amp thing is set to negative 1.5, so it'll lower the sound 1.5 decibels. To drop it down to 3, I got to hit it twice. Once I got that there, just make a copy. Just click and drag this over into the browser, and there's my sample. So there we go. Well, the thing is, you're not stuck with that. If you really want to edit it, you can open up an audio clip. You could copy this. There we go. Now I'm going to route it out to here. And if I want that kick to have a little bit of a different sound, I could add some saturation. I don't want to add the lows. I just want to add some top end. So I'm going to keep the lows natural. There we go. But I've already done this step before. As I've said, I've done this tutorial about 5 times. I already have a copy made. So I'm going to load that up. There we go. So the difference is nice and clean, slightly dirty. I like it slightly dirty just because it gives me a little bit more grip in the mix. It's thicker, it's more full. So, yeah, I don't have a snare in, so I can't play the snare. So let's load up a snare and we'll talk about that. So you can see I have 2 here, which means that's the snare I went with. So let's load this up in Edison too. So I'm going to use all my shortcuts now. So you get it. I'm going to open up the EQ. With snares, I don't really need anything under 85. It's a snare. It's not a kick. I don't need it thumping in the sub. So I'm going to cut everything 80 and under. There we go. Hit it again just to get rid of any of the little bits that are still left. Now I'm going to normalize. Now I'm going to lower it. 1, 2. There we go. So now it's lowered 3 decibels. I'm going to load that into my snare and load it into my snare here. So now my drums. There we go. I have clean drums. I don't have any weird sub going on. And that's pretty much all I need to do. One of the things that people always ask is they're like, why do you use FBC? I like to use audio clips and samplers because I have more control. I can route it out to whatever I need it to. I don't have to worry about everything being in the same track. Well, you don't have to do that. FBC has a couple different things that a lot of people just either overlook or don't know about. So here you have your MIDI note, so you could set it to be any note on the keyboard. Number 2, you got your cut and your cut by. So anything in that cut number, originally it starts off as nothing. So nothing will cut it. But if you set it to 0, you now have anything that's on 0 and 0 will cut that sound off. So there won't be any overlap between samples. It's really useful if you have crashes or like hi-hats that are really fast and you're trying to get that sprinkler sound. You could turn that on and it'll cut off the tail so you don't wind up with that in the background while they all fade out. Same with snares. So I'm going to set my snare to 1 and 1. So anything on 1, it will get cut by 1. You hear it? It's nice and tight. And the last thing is this output. This is where a lot of people get confused. So 12. This is going into channel 12. If I want this to move into 13, I add 1 to this output. You can right click and choose it individually, or you can go 1. Now this is going to go into 13. You can do that to any track. It goes as far as you need it to. But I don't really need that. I'm going to leave the kick into 1. I'm going to put the kick in nothing. The snare I want to scoot over 1. So I have it in 1. My hi-hats being in 3. So now when I play drums, oops, they're over 1 too far. Yeah, that happens. We all make mistakes. But yeah, I'm going to scoot these down 1. So that goes into 2, 2, and 2, and 2. So now, and now I have everything in its own mixer and I can play it in on my keyboard. Very useful features to have. Just wanted to show. Another couple things is you could actually pan. You could set your volume right here. So if you want to pan, you have your pan knob. If you want to pitch these up, pitch it down. If you want to pan it here, you can pan it there. So if you load up like 4 or 5 different things, like let's say you load up a snare or a clap, you can load up 4 claps, pan them here, and then they all load up in a different thing. So when you hit it, you'll hear 1 clap left, 1 right, however you decide to pan it. Really useful for stereo sounds, or maybe you have like room tracks or something from a professional project. Really good if you're doing rock music. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Just clean it up with EQ, compression if you need to. You can pre-cook it, so whenever you want to load that same sample up with the same seasoning, let's say that's your sound, you like that dirty kick sound, make your own sample. Take 1, change it up, throw it back in your folder. You got it every time you want to load it up. Right here. Got it. You want to, save it in FBC? Save it in FBC. Future bass. There we go. So now anytime I want to load it up, I got my Future Bass kit. I may not decide to stick with it, or I may decide to change out certain samples, but I have a starting point, which saves about 20 minutes of me trying to find samples. But that's pretty much it. So have fun choosing sounds, and the closer you get to the finished sound at this stage, the less you have to do in the mix, the less you have to do in the master, and the doper it'll be. Anyways, have fun mixing. Peace.